We are somewhere near, I don't know where we're near.
Worcester.
We're somewhere near Worcester. So I've got Sandy next to me. So Sandy is one of the bosses in the RPA, or the big, I don't know. Go on, you introduce yourself.
So my name's Sandy. I am Head of External Affairs in the RPA, which a lot of that is around how we engage with farmers, rural businesses, etc., etc. So try and get out about chatting to farmers, not necessarily in a combine on the A44, but that's the sort of thing that I try and do.
Well, there's not many combines working this time of year, so
Yeah.
you know, maybe that's the best thing. But I'm not sure if we've got any farmers watching at the moment. But if anyone's got any questions for Sandy, that'd be ideal. But this is kind of like an interview thing, because I don't really know Sandy, but Martin does. So we'll start with the basics. So how did you end up being at the RPA? What did you want to do when you were in school?
So I took law and accounting at university. Sort of fell into the civil service. My father used to work for ADAS.
Oh yeah.
And used to run government farms in Kenya when we moved over when I was quite young. So he's always been in the farming community as such, but not a farmer directly. So and then was really lucky to get a job working in the Ministry of Agriculture a number of years ago, and I've just loved it, and I've just stayed ever since. So 30 years this year I've been a civil servant. So yeah, really lucky to have the job that I'm doing at the moment, and joined the RPA 2012. So
11
really,
years then?
yeah, doing a lot of similar things in one form or another. So yeah, really enjoying it.
So for anyone that doesn't know what the RPA is, do you want to sum it up in a paragraph?
Yeah, sure.
So a sentence.
So the RPA is there to support farmers and rural communities through a range of schemes that we operate to help them deliver food production and environmental outcomes, essentially, and productivity, and a whole range of other things that they do.
Yeah, so at the moment I think we've applied for a grant for our corn drill,
Yeah.
to be able to put micronutrients down when we're drilling. Annoyingly, so I'm going to pick your brains on it.
Yeah, sure.
Our drill is 12 metres wide. You can only apply for a kit for a 6 metre drill, which is 7,000 quid. Say, well, if you imagine on a 12 metre drill, it's going to cost you twice as much, but you can't get twice as much. So it's a bit frustrating.
So we're always looking at how we can extend the list of things that we're doing, and that's really important. But like anything, Ollie, we'll take that feedback and we'll look to extend the list as and when we can get to the point where we can extend the list. So it's not there are constant grant schemes that are opening on a rolling basis, and actually we will look to continue to refine the list, expand it as and when we get feedback from you and others to say, look, this will be more suitable for us than others, and that's how we'll work with the policy teams to make sure that list gets expanded.
Yeah, and the new sort of scheme that's coming out, so BPS is getting phased out.
Yeah.
What's the uptake like on the new stuff?
So I think I've been out and about chatting a lot about BPS reductions, and actually what we'll see this year, the final year of BPS, a whole range of things that farmers can begin to access. We've got countryside stewardship that's open at the moment, and there will be farmers and rural businesses already in within countryside stewardship. So that mid-tier applications are open now, and actually we've got an online application process that will help that. SFI is currently open, and actually what we will be rolling out in the next few weeks is an announcement on the new standards that will be rolled out later in the summer. So again, another opportunity to farmers to access some additional actions and get rewarded for the things they're doing at the moment. So uptake on SFI, given the limited standards, has been okay, but actually what we're hoping for when we get to the point where we're launching the new actions that sit within the what I call the 23 offer, we'll see a bit more of an interest, because what I'm hearing from farmers in particular is that they are now looking at what other options they can access through the funding to get rewarded for the things they're doing at the moment. So
yeah, so I mean, some of it for me, I've been direct drilling, no tilling, cover crops, things like that. I'll actually get paid for farming in the way I've been farming for the last 10 years, so that's pretty good. But the big problem I've got at the moment is cash flow. So if you imagine we had we had hyperinflation from COVID. We had hyperinflation from the war in Ukraine. We've had grain prices fall to pre-war levels.
Yeah.
We've basically been robbed of a massive chunk of our cash flow.
Yeah.
And then at the moment, we're seeing this ratchet down of the BPS. I mean, are RPA looking at doing anything to help?
So cash flow we understand the importance of cash flow in particular. So if you look at what we've done on SFI, introduced quarterly payments, Ollie, which is really landing well.
Should have been.
So
How long have you been there? 12 years.
Middle lane over here, and then we're going straight. Well, Sandy will tell you.
Straight over. So what we are looking to do is actually
going past people to.
So we are looking to introduce that quarterly rhythm into other schemes. So certainly for contract stewardship next year, actually that regularisation of that quarterly payment seems to be landing really well, and we'll continue to do that. So actually there's an element of actually how do we make the new schemes more attractive to improve that access to funding, but also how do we go about improving the regularisation of funding that's currently available at the moment. So certainly for contract stewardship for next year, keen on introducing quarterly payments.
Yeah.
Which I think will be really beneficial for everyone. Where at the moment, you'll know, if you're in CS, the revenue payments get, you claim in mid-May, we'll start issuing them from December, which is a long time to get. Wait for money, where actually if we introduce quarterly payments next year, that will really help.
Yeah, and this year with the BPS, we're going to get 50% in July?
So from August, and actually at the moment, from August we'll get that 50% advance, and then the balance from December. And actually this will be the final year, but when we get into D-Link payments, we'll do something similar. So we've split it into 2 payments as well, just to improve that cash flow regularisation.
There's just that little switch down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I farm about 1,400 acres. My BPS is about 50k, which is fairly small for the acreage.
Yeah.
Just because of the different land tenures and different things. And I know it's good that having the 50%, but last year, when we were paying 75 to 100,000 pound more for fertiliser, 25k didn't really make a lot of difference. It would have been a lot nicer if it could have been all of it in July to help that cash flow pinch.
Yeah, and so there are.
You've already done the maths, haven't you?
Yeah. Well.
Do you want to grab that switch?
Yeah.
Sure. Every time you see anyone that's waving, we can give
So I think we are looking at options. I think the switch to 2 payments was something that we could do, and actually one of the things that we have to balance is a whole range of obligations, as I call it. There is something around, so we still need to do checks on the stuff that we receive, which is why we've split them, and actually we will then issue the balance payments from December. I think going forward, as again, if we move to quarterly payments on most of our schemes, actually then that will regularise a lot of cash flow. And also, if you think about what we've been able to do on contract stewardship for the last couple of years or so, increase the values of the payments that people are receiving, recognising the prices, and actually, I think the DEFRA have committed to reviewing the prices quite regularly as part of the future evolution of schemes in general anyway. But yeah, we know how important cash flow is.
Yeah, but so is it a cheap food policy, or is it completely public money for public good?
So I think at the moment the way that the schemes are opening, I know ministers in particular understand the importance of food production. The payments that we're issuing are about complementing elements of some of that stuff. So I think there is a lot of conversations around the food strategy and the food security element of things. And actually, when I'm out and about speaking to farmers, I was up in Kendal speaking to a group of 90 odd farmers, and a lot of "you can't eat trees, Sandy," "you can't eat bark, Sandy," and that, I think ministers recognise that the narrative wasn't as strong as the importance of food production, and that's changed quite a bit. And actually, I think ministers definitely recognise the value that you guys do around the importance of that food production bit. So I think there is definitely more to do. Part of the reason why we have this 7-year transition, Ollie, is that sense of where we got to under previous administrations of cap reform. The introduction of BPS was quite difficult. Actually, we're moving away from that, and that incremental test and learn approach, I think, is really going to be helpful in where we get to in terms of this journey. But there's a lot going on at the moment for farmers, and I know that leads to a level of complexity and anxiety. And I think the RPA's got a role to support farmers in doing some of that stuff. But actually, and I say this quite a bit when I'm out and about, I firmly believe the RPA gets things right, but I also recognise that there are things that we could do differently, and sometimes the anxiety of dealing with us can be problematic, and we are looking at how we can change that relationship, because I think we want to work in collaboration with farmers, working in partnership farmers, because there's a common outcome here in one form or another, and that's supporting the industry to deliver the great things that they deliver in terms of outcomes. So RPA as well as for the industry.
Do you meet more with the Ministry of Defence over food security, or does it not sit with them?
So food security as a policy actually is a policy thing rather than an RPA thing, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I know ministers, when they're looking at food production in particular, or the policy teams, engage with a whole range of different departments on what they want to do and how they want to do it. So there are constant dialogues around the strategies and the approaches that we take.
So it's a long bend.
Yeah.
There's been a few questions, but you might just have to sort of scroll to see what they say. Some of them might just be saying hello.
I'll pick them up later.
I've not got good enough eyesight.
No, nor have I. The challenge of getting slightly older is I'm in denial about varifocals, and I need to at some point admit that I am getting slightly older and I need varifocals.
So in 10 years' time, where do you see the RPA? Is it going to step away completely and leave farming to get on with itself and just be all about grants for the environment? Is it?
So I think the RPA has a role to play. So I think in 10 years' time, where I would like to think would be, we hit an optimum balance of working with farmers to support you to deliver the outcomes that you need to do, making sure that we still have a responsibility for protecting taxpayers' money, and I think that's still an obligation that we will need to work through. But also, I'd like to get to a point where it feels like there's a trust built between us, and actually I think the trust at the moment is quite fragile. If you think about all the improvements that we've made in terms of getting payments out in a more timely way, I still think there's a lot to do, and actually we've got action underway to think about how do we look at it from a whole farm perspective. Actually, I want to engage with you not just on a single service, but talk to you about everything that you're interacting with RPA rather than just the individual schemes that we operate. So I think the RPA's got a strong role to play, but I also recognise there's work that we need to do to build that trust.
There we go.
Yeah, but you said then, be there to make sure farmers, what did you say?
Deliver outcomes.
Deliver outcomes.
Yeah.
But who's thinking of the outcomes?
So that's a policy thing, isn't it? So the policy teams will come up with a proposal that says we want to deliver this type of environmental outcome. We've seen that in the Environmental Protection Plan. We will then translate elements of some of that stuff. And actually what we want to do is be less prescriptive where we can, because actually when I'm out and about chatting to farmers, things happen on the ground that you need to deal with. And actually we want to be less, is it a 100-metre hedge or a 3-metre height hedge, rather than focus on actually is the hedge delivering the biodiversity that it feels it needs. And that's easier. That makes it easier for us as well. So when our field officers come out and visit you, it isn't so like we're police officers measuring things rather than
Which you
actually,
have been.
which we have been, and actually that's part and parcel of the historic policy has been your hedge needs to be 3 metres in height, 100 metres in length, or whatever it is. So we want to step away from that type of measurement approach and actually have a conversation in terms of what the outcome looks like. We're in a transitionary period at the moment, so actually there are still things that we still are required to do in terms of that measurement. But actually, when we get to the point of the end of the agricultural transition, I hope we build that partnership. And we're seeing elements of some of that feedback already, but there's a lot more to do in that space.
You know what the biggest thing you could do that helped me? Interest-free loans. So you encourage productivity. Well, it's quite difficult sometimes. I like some of the grants that you can get towards machinery. It's got to be new machinery. It's got to this. It's got to that. It's very hard to work with. Whereas if you just said, right, as long as you can have this much money, as long as it's spent on something that's going to make you more productive on this list, you can have much more than the grant, but you pay it back over 5 or 10 years, but it's interest free. That would really kickstart the industry, and it wouldn't really cost you anything because you're going to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that away certainly as an idea. I think the other thing that we also need to do, Ollie, is again look at it from a bit of a whole farm view. And actually, at the moment, there will be other things that I think will be really helpful. And actually, we've got a farmer panel essentially of about 800 farmers and agents that are helping us think about the way we work, the way we communicate, the way that we communicate all sorts of changes that we want to make. But yeah, I'll definitely take that away.
Yeah, I mean, just for me at the moment, interest rates going up. Because I've bought land, I've bought yards, and now costing me well over an extra £10,000 a month than it was this time last year. And again, times that up, say 150 grand a year, that makes the BPS just not really worth it. It's all right for me because we are diagram drilling, we are doing cover crops, but I can see a lot of farmers thinking this is a lot of hoops to jump through, or changing the way I farm to get a small bit of whatever, when there's so much else that we've got to concentrate on. I know every bit helps, but
and I think you're right, and actually I think that's the sort of thing that we want to move towards, which is we want to make the administration side of things as simple as possible. And actually then allow you to concentrate your efforts on doing the things that you do. I mean, you're out 60 hours plus minimum. Actually, can we make the administration more simple? So actually the funding that you're accessing and actually how you comply with it is simple. So definitely more work to do in that space.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a pot every year, or do you have a pot for 10 years that you roll out? I mean, could a loan scheme work?
So there is a commitment around 2.4 billion annually for all of the schemes that we operate, which is part of the manifesto commitment.
It's the fifth what Network Rail got. I mean that again. Just while we're on that point. So we had a pandemic. Network Rail said they were struggling because people weren't buying train tickets. They got an extra, I think it was 12 billion. Farmers, what did we get? Nothing. We had hyper fuel price inflation. We had cheap fuel price, hyper fuel price inflation. We couldn't get the COVID grants because we didn't pay business rates, which I know it's nice every year that we don't pay business rates, but also it's kind of ludicrous for some of the size of the buildings we have for such low value items. So, and the fact that we sell everything at wholesale and buy it all retail. But we got no help whatsoever, and to me, everyone needs to eat more than they need to use a train. I don't get it, how the pie's divided up. Do you have any say? Can you go to government and say, we need more to deliver these outcomes? Or is it just that's what you're getting?
So at our end, I mean, that is a policy and a ministerial decision, Ollie. Yeah. So we get given a scheme to operate, and we operate that. And actually our challenge has always been, how do we make that scheme so attractive that we are getting a huge amount of interest and uptake. the framework, the financial framework that sits around it is a policy decision and sits with ministers, and actually we then implement it. So we have a say in what we think will work and what we think won't work as part of our delivery experience. But that whole financial portfolio and responsibility to what it then invests in is pretty much everything, I'm afraid.
So you literally just get what you're given. You don't say, "Whoa, hold on a second."
We can influence things. So, for instance, if there's a policy idea that says we want to invest in this particular aspect of either productivity or a scheme, we can influence it and say, actually, from our experience, this is what people are finding interesting or not interesting. But then that again, it's a policy, and actually what they'll come to us and will say, actually, is this deliverable? So let me give you a good example. We did flood recovery a couple of years ago, where recognising some of the specific impact of flooding on farms, we were able to set up a scheme reasonably quickly. But again, we set up the scheme and delivered it. Jeffra found the funding.
If you see anywhere to pull over a verge or a lay-by, we'll let your cars past.
Okay, let me.
So flooding, obviously, pockets, different places.
Not far from here, on the lay-by. Going to do it there.
Just press the button, please. Yeah, okay, then if it's not too far, yeah. But it, like, nearly every farm at the moment has got a cash flow disaster.
Yeah.
You know, we've literally, the energy companies, through the fertiliser companies or whichever, have took so much money out of the industry in the last sort of 14, 15 months. You know, it's going to be difficult. I mean, we've got, if we get another drought, we're going to stop here.
Yeah, it's fine. So I think it is our role to help where we can, and actually we will try and do elements of some of that stuff. So within the existing services, what flexibility can we apply? So if I look at some of the drought last year and some of the fires that we saw, we were able to do some tactical things around that. But there is definitely more work to do in that space.
We just pulled over in a lay-by because there's a little boy that we're going to meet. I say little boy, he's 16. He's going through some cancer treatment at the moment, and obviously one of the things that we're doing is raising money for children with cancer as well. So we're going to end the live and speak to him. There's probably quite a lot of questions come up there. So if you've not, when I end the live, the comments that have been going up and down will disappear. So if you've got a burning comment, put it under the video, and then Sandy can log on later and answer them. I've just had a message off Alan Henson. I don't know what it says, but I would guess we're about 45 minutes from his place. So bit of a different live for the old. I'm going to show people actually a little bit more around. A bit of a different live than the ones you've been seeing, but Sandy was local and jumped on. So we're just in this lay-by now, just outside Eacham. There's David Shove. He's my local NFU Mutual guy. He sorted out the insurance for all this to make sure everything was insured. We probably won't tell him how close we were to putting a straw chopper through the front windscreen of the car. But yeah, thanks for watching. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Just what a fantastic thing you guys are doing. I know how difficult farming is at the moment. I know how anxious people are feeling. We have a lot of conversations with the farming welfare organisations. We meet them quite regularly. So great job. Well done.
So thanks for coming anyway, and we'll see you all in a bit.
Thanks all.